morning. Thank you for joining us today, August 24th, for the Using Cisco Security to Implement the Mitre Att&ck Framework webinar, presented by Rick Brennan from TD Synnex and Yash Shah from Molaprise.
I'll introduce myself and then I'm going to turn it over to Yash. I'm Rick Brennan. I'm a cybersecurity solutions architect. Work at TD Synnex. Mainly focus on Cisco cybersecurity solutions, but I have done other solutions in the past. I've been with the company 8 years now. Doesn't seem like it, but before that, I was out in the field as a solution architect, and before that, an implementation engineer. So I did a lot of consulting work out at One Tier Gold resellers. So I have a significant amount of implementation experience to go along with distribution experience. And I'll turn it over.
Awesome. Yash Shah, Technology Practice Lead at Molaprise. We are primarily working with Cisco-focused technologies and security solution offerings. We do cloud. With Molaprise, I'm responsible specifically for implementation of these technologies and cloud security technologies as we grow into this space, right? Our focus has been on the fintech industry and the US government sector. And I've led projects and implemented several security projects around the space. I lead a team of engineers, and together we enable digital transformation for organizations today, right? So let's, before we dive into the topic, let's just do a quick background on who Molaprise is and what are the quick services that we want to offer. So let's, Rick, if you can go to the next slide, please. And so 3 core services, right? Three things that Molaprise do is cybersecurity, cloud and digital transformation, infrastructure, modernization, and support. We are a cybersecurity company that also does cloud, and that, kind of stealing that line from Microsoft. But that's how we have developed ourselves, cloud-first, security-first organization. And basically working through any requirements that we have for our customers, creating custom solutions for them, and delivering those custom solutions for cloud, right? This webinar specifically, it revolves around our cybersecurity services and the importance of how Mitre, what Mitre is, what the threat intelligence, informed threat defense that Mitre provides, and how we can integrate with our Cisco solutions and Cisco offerings, right? So with our cloud and digital transformation, infrastructure modernization and support, we do a lot of data center, we do a lot of migrations, and bringing the applications to the cloud, bringing infrastructure to the cloud back and forth, right? But when we are moving all these pieces around, security is paramount, and how we use Cisco solutions to secure the endpoint infrastructure, the data center infrastructure, and several other solutions besides Cisco also to deliver a complete end-to-end security in general, right? So let's dive into the topic with Mitre Att&ck Framework. I'm going to do the initial introduction, and then Rick will drive the demos, and we have some cutting-edge demos planned with new Cisco solutions and technologies coming around. So it's kind of, a launch for ourselves also, where we are going to dive into Secure X demos and XDR demos with Cisco. So basically, just giving out a little teaser there. All right, so Mitre Att&ck, right? It's a very standard industry framework. It's been adopted by very, like a lot of companies, right? It is backed by a lot of companies, and it is federally backed. Okay, so the attack, it stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. it's kind of self-explanatory, but the entire goal here, and in a very brief, the entire goal here is to help the security administrators make informed, uh, threat-informed defense decisions for their organizations, and deciding, helping them act accordingly during the phase of the attack, obviously before the attack to ensure defenses, but also during the attack and how they can remediate the attack, as well as post-attack um, impact analysis and recovery, right? So that is, I'm not going to go by the textbook definitions, but that's how practically you can operationalize the attack framework, right? And um, let's quickly dive on the TTPs and the IOCs of the framework, right? Rick, you can feel free to chime in over here to get into more detail.
Sure.
But yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So, like Yash said, that the ATT and CK is all about tactics and techniques. So it's actually looking at security from a different perspective. We used to try to defend against attacks. We used to try to defend against known malicious behavior. But what happens if it's a 0 day? What happens if there's bad actors out there? Usually what they do is they use the same tactics and techniques and they modify them slightly. So if we could understand the actual mechanics behind it, if we can understand their behavior, we can have a lot better response to any kind of security bad behavior that we see coming in. So if you look at the pyramid on the bottom, hash values, that's pretty trivial. We can actually sandbox things and we can figure out whether files are malicious or non-malicious. And we can generate a SHA-256 hash and we can put it out in the cloud. We can download that SHA hash database of known good and known bad files. And it's really easy to generate SHA hashes on-prem and compare the hashes. That's the easy stuff. So IP addressing too, easy. Domain names, easy. If you use products out there like some kind of a DNS security product, usually what they do is they have a number of blacklisted domains and they have a number of whitelisted domains, and then they have some unknown domains they don't know about yet. But we can easily look those up. And that's how products like OpenDNS work, that type of thing. So that's relatively trivial, easy, and simple. Once we start to get into challenging, now we have network host artifacts. Now we have endpoint security. So we have endpoint security that's watching the actual, what's the behavior on the endpoint? Are they trying to modify registry entries? Or are they trying to actually run scripts like Microsoft, PowerShell, things like that? So that starts to become more and more challenging. The tools, well, we're all siloed. That's where the annoying thing comes from. So we might have tools that we manage our endpoint security, tools where we manage our responses, tools where we manage our firewall, our email security. So now we've got siloed UIs, siloed windows into everything. But visibility is difficult because we have to keep spinning our chair around to these different consoles, and we try to actually correlate these things when they're happening. Maybe we got an email in and the email had a phishing attempt and somebody clicked on it and then it went to the endpoint, but it's a little bit annoying and it's a little bit difficult. Tactics and techniques, they're actually the bulk of the problem. So a lot of these people, and it's well known too, the problem in the hacking world is it's big business. So these people are taking these tactics and techniques that are publicly published and they're modifying these things. So if we can actually put a wrapper around these and say, well, I've seen this before, I've seen a fuzzy bear attack and this attack does certain things to an endpoint and I can watch this behavior. Now I can correlate these things and say, it looks like similar behavior to an attack that I've seen before, although I've never seen it before. It might be a 0 day, but I can see this behavior is similar. So now we can actually identify that we've got bad behavior as opposed to just getting a domain name and address or a hash value. So it actually enriches what we're doing in security for our security operations team, and it enriches their visibility into what's going on. So why does it matter to us? So customers are using it in a variety of cases. So one of the things is it's open source, it's common language. And as Yash said, that it's funded by the government. So we have a central knowledge base that shows all of the tactics, techniques, and it gives you tips on how to mitigate and how to remediate. So this is really important. Before we had security operations, we'd flag it, we've set up, we've had some kind of a compromise, we've had some kind of an event. And now it was up to the SOC to try to figure out, well, what really happened? How did they do this and how do we mitigate it? But with ATT&CK, it's going to lay everything out and it's going to show you how it was done. And then it's going to point you into the right mitigation so that you can remediate this and you can remove this threat. It's evolving continually. We have zero-day attacks every day, right? So all of these people are modifying things, they're modifying code, they're doing all of this. So it's constantly evolving, and so is the ATT&ck framework. It's keeping up to date with all of these new tactics, techniques, if it's seen out in the wild. So analyst requirement, all of the analysts are pretty hot on this right now. And like I said, this is not just a Cisco thing. This is like an industry-wide security thing. So you're going to see all kinds of other players out there, not only Cisco, integrating Mitre into their stack so that they're going to give you more visibility. You know, we have Palo Alto, we've got Fortinet, we've got endpoint security, we've got McAfee, we've got a bunch of people. They're all using this ATT&ck framework to give you more enrichment, to give you more visibility into what happened when you have an attack. The other thing too is I always call them the F and the G people. So the Forrester and the Gartner people, they're demanding it. You know, in their if people aren't using ATT&ck as an overlay in their security environment, they're dinging them for it. So they want to see this integrated. They know that it makes the security environment more robust, and they know that it makes it a lot easier for the SOC if we do overlay this and we give that kind of visibility. It represents the current landscape too, better than anyone else's. You know, this represents what the attackers are doing. It's calling them out. And marketing, it's really important with marketing. So people are going to start coming if they read Gartner and it's not in the Magic Quadrant. They're going to read down and find out why. And it's like, well, they're lacking this framework as an overlay to their security environment. So it's really important with marketing as well. What it is not, though, it's not an exhaustive list of everything that's happening in the security environment. It draws on public knowledge, and a lot of techniques, tactics, they're not public yet. You know, remember I mentioned the zero-day attacks? We have to figure out what they're doing. You know, some of these smart guys are coming out with some new tactics and techniques. So it's not always exhaustive. It's not all encompassing always, but it's 98, 99% there for techniques that hackers are actually sharing and using right now. It is a compliance framework. We're going to see how it's used as that. It's a prescriptive architecture. So it's basically, like I said, it's visibility. Visibility is everything when you're trying to do network operations or security operations. If you can't see something, if you can't see your network, you can't see your flows, you can't see the attacks, there's no way to remediate them. So the more visibility we can layer on top of this, which Mitre is more visibility into how they're doing things, the better it is for our security operations center. It's not a miracle cure, right? It's not an all-encompassing thing. Like I said, zero-day attacks are happening all the time, but eventually they're going to get included in the tactics and techniques that these hackers are using. It's not a guarantee of efficacy, not a guarantee of success, but it does give you a lot more visibility. The coverage isn't always indicative of detections. You know, sometimes we might see some behavior that's similar and it might flag it. And then when we go and actually do, you know, we go in and we do some kind of a threat response and we enrich that threat and all of that, we find out, you know, it wasn't exactly what we thought it would be. But it's nicer to get an alert and it's nicer to go in and double check on it than it is not to have that visibility. And not all techniques and sub-techniques are equal in impact, right? So a lot of times it's depending on the value of your asset. So if you've got an asset out there and we have some kind of an attack on a server that's servicing 100,000 users, it's certainly going to be more damaging to your business than it is a single endpoint. So not all of the techniques, sub-techniques are equal in impact. Some of them have more impact than others. So let me show you a little bit of the dashboard and see if I can do this here. So if we go out to attack.mitre.org, we can see that we have matrices. We have matrices for enterprise mobile, tactics, and resources. So we have general information getting started. I'm not going to get too much into this because we're limited on time, but I would encourage everybody to go out there and actually go out with a web browser and look at this guide. But let me show you a little bit. Enterprise is usually the place where we look at most things. So this is the enterprise matrix, and you can see how much information is out here in this enterprise matrix. So we have all of these tactics. So reconnaissance, resource development, initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, and discovery. So they're all categorized in the tactics, and then underneath them, they're going to have techniques. So this is what the actual security software is using as an overlay. So they're saying that I've seen something happen, and I have some kind of an alert out there, whether it's endpoint security, whether it's email security, and maybe what they're doing is they're doing some kind of a credential access. So maybe it's a man-in-the-middle attack. Maybe it's credentials from password stores. Maybe it's forged credentials. So maybe it's a brute force attack. Maybe somebody has got your user list and they're using brute force attack, trying to get common dictionary passwords and all of that. So if you go into brute force, it's going to tell you what it is, what the sub technique is, platforms that it typically is found in. So it's going to give you a lot of information, and it's going to give you a lot of procedural examples. So Ukraine electric power attack. This is an example of this happening in Ukraine. This is probably the Russians probably attacking Ukraine, but Sandworm team campaign. And it shows you Sandworm team, account manipulation, the techniques used, all of these things. These are really important to shed visibility on an event that happens in your security environment. And we don't have to get too much into this, but the software, with the new buzzword this year, is AI, so artificial intelligence. So the software has a lot of routines and AI built into it that can overlay these, and they can watch the actual behavior of what's going on in your environment, and they can correlate it. So now we can come in and we can say, well, we've seen a T1543 create a modify system process. You need to go look at that, and it's going to actually point you in the right direction with this particular framework. So there's a lot of it. There's a huge amount of information in here. So let your tools do the actual mining for you. Let your tools do the artificial intelligence, and let your tools tell you what it found and the correlation it found between the events that are happening in all of your security environment and what MITRE is saying about the actual behavior of those events happening. It's really a huge plus if you're in a security operations center, to actually get this information back and get this visibility reported back to you. There we go. So a language for all. So we get into who uses it. Like I said, the F and the G people are kind of demanding that security vendors use it, because it's really important to add this visibility into the environment. So what can we do with it? So threat intelligence, CTI, I love all these acronyms, drive us all crazy, but that basically it's cyber threat intelligence. So early adopters, attribution, and cyber threat intelligence. It's adding threat intelligence. It's adding more visibility. It's adding more analytics into everything. And it's adding adversary emulation into it. So now we can actually get this intelligence built into our security products, and we can give you more visibility. We can give you more information about what's happening. Pre-sales can use it as well. So we can use it as when we do assessments, we can use it to identify gaps in coverage. So do the defenses stack up? Are we actually addressing everything that the bad guys are doing, for their tactics and techniques? Can we tune our defenses more? Or do we need to actually modify them? Do we need to add more to it? So a lot of times we go in and we use a framework and we'll do an assessment, especially with something like security, and we'll say, well, you've got pretty decent email security. You're lacking a little bit in your endpoint security, all of that. So now, and as far as the actual pre-sales, we can go in, we can say, do a gap analysis and say, here's your gaps. right? And these are the reasons why, because you're not protecting against these particular techniques that the attackers are using. And maybe we would recommend products to actually address those gaps. So this is typically what we would see. Using it for threat intelligence, we're going to ingest all of this information. It has APIs on the back end, and this is how people are using it. So they're integrating their products with APIs into the MITRE environment. And the focus is to enrich the threat picture. The focus is to give you more visibility. The focus is to tell you about what your adversaries are doing out in the security environment and how they're actually attacking you. And it's going to improve decision making and response, because usually what would happen with a security operations team is we get a bunch of alerts. We get an email alert, we get an alert for endpoint security, we get a bunch of alerts. Now we've got to actually take those and we have to give it to a security operations engineer, and they would actually have to do a manual enrichment of this. They'd have to figure out, they'd have to correlate times, what happened in email, what happened on endpoint security. What happens if we can actually make that more automatic? What happens if we can put artificial intelligence and we can even overlay it with this Mitre Att&ck Framework and show you this is more than likely how they did this, and this is how to remediate that. So the other thing too is it's vendor agnostic. So they don't care who uses it. The APIs are open. The information is open for everybody. And I love the little saying of Sun Tzu: if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles, right? So if you have the visibility, if you have the information, it makes it a lot easier for your security operations team to actually remediate these things. We use it for detection and analysis. We can take detection beyond globally known signatures. We can actually watch for behavior. So this is the really important thing. We're watching for the behavior of what these attackers are doing. And then from that behavior, it doesn't have to be exactly, but it'll follow a pattern of behavior. We can say, boom, we've seen this before and we've seen what happens. These are the places to look to see if it's actually infected your environment, if it's actually impacting your environment. We can use it as red and purple teams. So we can actually have red teams and purple teams, and we can drop malicious code in there, and we can see how it improves the efficacy of the in-house red team. So it helps scope and collaborate with external red team. Purple teams often unite around TTP-based exercises. So remember I said they're public. All of these hackers are sharing this information out in the open. So the purple teams, if they're going to play hacker, which they do, they're going to actually take these tactics and techniques and they're going to turn them into an exercise and try to turn them around on the red team and try to win over the red team. So it's important that we have this information because it's going to give us a lot better red team response to an attack from the purple team. Assessment and engineering. So we went over this before, so we assess coverage. We look at what people have. We certainly don't want them to forklift everything and throw away their investment. So we prioritize the gaps and we say, what can we give you that will preserve your investment that you've already made in some of the big ticket things like firewalls and email security and all of that. But let's see if we can prioritize gaps and we can fill that in. Maybe it's a Cisco product we could use. Maybe it's something else. But, we want to fill these gaps in. We want to give you the efficacy that you don't have to worry about your environment. You don't have to worry about the security environment. Up in the top, Cisco's XDR and portfolio are quickly moving to assist here. So I'm going to show you that too. I'm going to show you the old SecureX product in a demo, and I'm going to show you the new XDR product that Cisco's released. It's pretty amazing with the new AI that they've integrated into XDR, what you can do with that, because it does automatic enrichments of alerts with techniques and tactics overlaid. It gives coverage mapping and it builds policy sets and all of this based on tactics. The other thing too that XDR does is it actually tells the SOC how to remediate. It'll say, I've seen this happen. I know that it's following these particular tactics and techniques, and this is how you remediate it. Or do you want me to automatically remediate it? That's pretty cool too. So we finally have a common language. It's for everybody. We don't care who uses it. We want people to use it. We want to encourage them to use this because the main goal in security is to be all cooperative and fight against the bad guys. So there's no need to switch things. There's no need to modify things. The only thing you have to do is make sure that the vendor has included these APIs and they're ingesting this information from Mitre. It's vendor agnostic. We don't care who uses it again. And it's easier to grasp. So it gives you more visibility. It focuses on what the enemy is doing. It focuses on their tactics, not just the end mess that's happened in your environment. It's saying, well, how did we get here? How did we get this malicious code on our boxes? This is the answer. It's like, this is the way they did it. And these are the things to look at to get rid of it. So where else does it come into play? Ability to detect and protect, adversary behavior in ATT&CK, thoroughly and openly documented. It's measurable, it's repeatable, a constant level of incremental improvements. So talk about a little bit in Cisco's portfolio, right? So remember I said the F and the G people are kind of demanding this. So you're going to see it with everybody. I can tell you, I've worked with all kinds of different vendors. I've worked with data center. I've worked in networking. I've worked in security, all of this. So we can even tell you this is high on the priority list for every security vendor, whether it be Palo Alto, whether it be Fortinet, whether it be Checkpoint. All of these people are using this information now. And it's really important to them. It's important for marketing, but it's also important for efficacy. So when you have a security operations team, if you can give them this additional visibility, this additional place to look for information, it makes their jobs a whole lot easier. So one of the things I should say is when we start to look at XDR, we're going to look at it and we're going to see the Mitre ATT&CK tactics and techniques coming in when we have alerts. The ATT&CK framework is not feeding directly into XDR. It's feeding directly into the products like Secure Endpoint, or it's feeding into email security. Those are the products that are sending alerts up to the Cisco SecureX or XDR, and they're bundling the actual Mitre technique with that in the information that it's sending up. So we can see that we have a Mitre attack, tactic and techniques on an alert that we've had on Secure Endpoint. So this is Cisco's, Secure Endpoint product. And this would actually be forwarded up to SecureX or XDR in its entirety. So we see a compromise observed. It requires attention because we've identified this as a major compromise. But the other thing we can do too is we can say, this is how they're trying to do it. They're trying to establish resources they can use to support this operation. And this is the actual tactic. This is the actual technique. These are the things that they're following as a hacker to make these happen. And then you can actually go and you can figure out how to remediate this. Firewall Management Center, it's integrated with Firewall as well. I believe it's 7.3 or above in the Cisco world. They're fully integrated with Mitre, ATT&CK. So they're doing exactly the same thing. They say, we've seen this incident happen with a firewall. We've seen something malicious go to an endpoint from our firewall perspective, and we've identified the actual tactics and techniques, and we're going to give you that additional information. Secure Malware Analytics, also, we're tracking in there. Orbital, this is part of endpoint security. Orbital is like a SQL database to endpoint, but we can actually query our endpoints and we can say, have you seen these particular tactics and techniques on our endpoints internally in our environment? So it's also integrated with Orbital, endpoint security, Secure Network Analytics, which is the old StealthWatch, completely integrated in here too. So we actually, in StealthWatch, Secure Network Analytics, we can actually ingest logs from web-based like Amazon or Azure, and then we can watch the actual network flows inside there, talking between containers, talking between devices, all of that, and then we can watch them for actual behavior, and we can identify those and say, hey, you know what, this behavior looks like it's this particular tactic and technique, and we can give you that information as well. XDR Analytics. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to show you that. So Secure Cloud Analytics also uses this too. Command and control. We can identify it's a command and control because we've actually correlated that to a tactic and technique. Secure workload. So this is our tetration. We now support events by tactic as well. I don't see a lot of this being sold except for large, huge enterprise environments, but we also see it integrated with that. So what is the importance to XDR? So XDR is extended detection and response. So what is it? What's the difference between EDR and XDR? So EDR is a subset of XDR. So EDR is your endpoint detection and response. And we've seen a lot of it promoted out there with different vendors and all of that. The problem with EDR is it gives you a very narrow view of what's happening inside your entire environment. It's only showing you what's happening to the endpoints. It's not showing you how it got there. It's not showing you coming through a firewall, or it's not showing you a network flow. So it's giving you a little bit of a limited visibility into what's happening. It is effective for endpoints, but wouldn't it be nice if we could incorporate network flows, anomalies with network flows? Maybe we've got data exfiltration happening with a huge flow that happens when it hasn't happened in the past. And we have an endpoint alert too at the same time saying we've got some kind of a bot that has impacted that endpoint, but we also see a huge increase in network flows coming from that endpoint. This is what XDR is showing you. It's showing you that not only endpoint security for EDR, it's showing you security from your firewall, security from your emails. It's showing you integrated security from all other products. And with XDR, you can actually integrate non-Cisco sources into it, non-Cisco intelligence feeds. Palo Alto can integrate with it. Some of your other firewalls can integrate with it. So all of these things are feeding XDR to give you complete visibility into your security environment, not just the endpoint. So we're going to show you just a little bit how it's actually working with SecureX and XDR. So we're closing detection gaps and enriching events. So how are we actually doing that? So we're integrating the ATT&ck framework with the actual software that's feeding XDR. So XDR isn't getting, and XDR is not correlating this information. It's just receiving this information from whether it be Palo Alto, whether it be Cisco Next-Gen Firewall, whether it be Cisco email security. They are sending this up and they're tagging all of this with the Mitre ATT&ck information. It's just showing you in one central pane of glass everything that's happening in your environment, and it's correlating everything together, and it's also giving you recommendations on what to do. It's telling you, you can see in the left-hand pane, see I have a priority 1000 alert. The reason I have a priority 1000 alert on that particular device is I've given that device a value of 10. So you can actually give your devices different values on how important they are to your business of 0 to 10. So I've given this device a value of 10, and I've had 100% certainty that I have had a malicious attack on this device and this device is compromised. So 10 times 100 is 1,000. It's like pants on fire. You better actually go out and you better take a look at this thing because something needs to be remediated. And it's a very high value endpoint that it's happened to. Vendor agnostic means of linking solutions. So alert chains, ATT&ck used to organize events into patterns. So remember I said it's behavior. We want to watch the behavior of things that are happening. And then we want to identify those as some kind of a tactic and technique. So the XDR team is evaluating options and improvements for Cisco XDR. It's constantly coming. This is a product that was just released. It's really funny that the seminar came up right now. So Cisco was promoting SecureX, which was fantastic. And I'll show you a little bit of a demo with it. But this timing of this seminar is perfect because Cisco is now production with XDR. It's now for sale. So I always call it SecureX on steroids, where SecureX was a dashboard that gave you visibility into your entire security environment. XDR goes beyond that, and they ingest network flows, and they ingest network data, and they ingest other things like Mitre ATT&ck framework information. And then not only that, with the artificial intelligence built in with XDR, they'll actually recommend on how you remediate this stuff. So they're going to enrich this automatically for you using all of the intelligence feeds coming in from all different kinds of places, you know, whether it be intelligence feeds coming in from Cisco Umbrella, intelligence feeds coming in from maybe Amazon, or even other people like Microsoft. They have Microsoft intelligence feeds coming in. All of this information is going to give you a huge amount more visibility, more intelligence into all of this. And they're going to correlate that, and they're going to tell you, well, I've seen all these things happening. I know this is bad. I know it's 100% bad, and this is how I'm recommending to remediate this for you. Right here, we're guiding and simplifying simple responses. So once we put the ATT and CK information in, now the mitigation becomes really apparent. So if I've got something that's running a PowerShell script, and this is the tactic and technique that this hacker has used to do it, I know that I can go into my endpoint security and I know I can clean this out, and I know that I can probably prevent these particular scripts from happening or these particular things having access to PowerShell. Just one type of thing. So I'm going to give you a quickie with XDR. I'm trying to leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So the old Cisco product, which fantastic, it's been around for 2 years. This is, to me, was one of the most exciting things, with me working with security, is what was always the problem? The problem was that you had silos of security. The problem was that you had email security and it had its own UI. You had maybe DNS security and it had its own web interface. You had security for endpoint, it had its own web interface. Wouldn't it be great if you could just see everything in one pane of glass? And that was the whole initial, the whole target of Secure X with Cisco. This was a product that if you bought Cisco products, it integrated in, you could get some third-party integration, third-party feeds, but it was free. And Cisco said, we would like to make it easier for your security operations center to see everything in one single pane of glass. So you can see in here, this is the old interface. And I just wanted to show this to everybody in the seminar. If you see this out in the wild, this is the old SecureX interface. It was 2 years, fantastic stuff, but you can see I've got secure endpoints rolling up. I've got secure firewall incidents rolling up. You can click on these and you can roll into the UIs. You can actually do forensic analysis with this. This is built on Cisco Threat Response, which is a fantastic forensic analysis tool that you can take indicators of compromise and you can say, hey, I've got some bad SHA hashes. People have been out to these bad URLs, these web, URLs that I know are malicious and all of that. I want to enrich this and I want to find out if it's impacting my environment. Fantastic tool for it. The other thing too in here, if you wanted to do any try and buys, you can learn more. You can get free trials of the software. You can do all of this. So this was SecureX. All right, so these are all integrations. Can integrate virtually hundreds of products with this and have them all show up on the dashboard. This dashboard, you can move it around. You can customize it. You can have up to 20 dashboards. If you wanted a network operations center dashboard or a security operations center dashboard, you can do that. On the right-hand side is your actual, news. So if we see something come out, if we see a zero-day attack, researchers uncover new Lazarus group malware details. Duo, this is coming from Duo. So all of these things are coming in. This happens to be a lot of Duo, but Orbital, which is our endpoint security, but it also can come in from Mitre. It can come in from anything that's integrated in with this. They're going to tell you news feeds on things you need to know about what's happening for malicious behavior in the security world, right? So then you can actually go in and you can take these things, you can read the articles, and you can go in. They're going to give you indicators of compromise. You can run these inside SecureX and Cisco Threat Response, and you can identify with enrichment if it's actually impacting your environment. The other thing that it does too, it's going to give you a lot of insight into your endpoints. So it's going to give you inventory of all your endpoints. Now with XDR, it's bringing inventory in from all kinds of non-Cisco sources. So you could have mobile device management, MDM management, all of that. It's going to send information back to XDR that actually is device management type things. So orchestration, this is really interesting. And you're going to see it in XDR as well. When I flip over, I'm going to show you how to flip over to XDR. What would happen if you can automate all this? With a simple, what you see is what you get, drag and drop interface. That's what SecureX orchestration is. So we could actually trigger an orchestration to happen for any reason. We could have a security alert that could trigger an orchestration. That orchestration would be a workflow that would go through. Maybe we want to automatically enrich this. And maybe we want to automatically figure out whether this is malicious, non-malicious, impacting my environment or not, and then send the results to our security team. Or maybe we even want to remediate it. And we can do all of these things with secure orchestration, SecureX orchestration. So don't worry. We can actually go out here and we can switch to XDR. So you can see how tightly integrated SecureX is with XDR. So SecureX was the original product. Fantastic product, right? It was really, for Cisco to come up with a product, Cisco has always been a little bit kind of what's in my little sandbox. I want to keep in my sandbox. This is one of the first products that came out, said, I want to integrate with everybody. I want to have open APIs to integrate with everybody. And I want everybody to give me information, but I'll also give you information too. And I'll allow you to integrate your APIs in so that you can push a button inside SecureX. And the same with XDR, because it's built on that platform, that I could remediate something in some third-party software. Very, very cool. Maybe you want your mobile device manager to react to something that's happening on a mobile device when you've seen some kind of a compromise. You can do that through third-party APIs. They've changed the interface a little bit. I always say they Meraki-fied it. If anybody's familiar with the Meraki kind of thing, that everything is a very clean interface now, but everything is still here. Right? We've got all of these things. We've got client management. They've called them different names, but it's the same thing. If we can get more visibility, this is the demo assets. If we can get more visibility into everything going on, like how many Windows operating systems we have, how many unknown operating systems, Mac OS, Ubuntu, Network Gateway. But we can get all of this information through not only Cisco sources like the AnyConnect client, Sentinel, CrowdStrike. All of these things are totally integrated in with XDR now. So all of these mobile device management, all of these endpoint management softwares, all of that, we can extract information and we can actually get the actual hygiene of the end device. We can see if the end device has the firewall on. We can see if the end device has been patched. We can see what service pack level it is on a Windows box. So now we can actually correlate this and we can say, well, I know that if we're running Windows Server 2019 and I've only got Service Pack 2 on it, I get a bunch of vulnerabilities with this. So we can identify the vulnerabilities now with something like XDR, and we can say, well, we've had a compromise on that endpoint. Did it take advantage of this vulnerability? So it's really important information to have out there. Show you a little bit of incidents going on. Remember I said the priorities? If we actually look at some of these incidents in here, let's say this is a suspected malicious URL and it's an impact level of 780. So we've said that our asset was a value of 10. It's a really important asset to us, but the detection risk with all of the feeds we have, we say it's about a 78%. It's a 78% detection risk. But you're also going to get all kinds of other information, like you're going to get this, indicators of compromise, and we can go into the incident detail and we can actually see inside the incident what it's impacting in our environment. So this is really important information if you're trying to remediate something. And if you see on these guys, a lot of times there's little drop downs where you can immediately remediate this type of thing. So we've actually contacted a malicious domain. We can actually add it to a case. We can give this case to somebody inside our security operations team. We can also do things like we can block or unblock domains inside things like Umbrella. We can add an indicator to CrowdStrike. Remember I said it directly integrates with third-party software. Cisco's playing really nice with third-party people now. So all of this stuff in XDR is all of this extra visibility you're getting, but it's also extra integration you're getting with all of the third parties out there. So I know I could go into this and I could delve into this for probably hours because this is like really exciting to me to have this single pane of glass to see everything from. But just understand that the new XDR is kind of like SecureX on steroids, and it's giving you huge amounts of visibility, not only into Cisco products, it's giving you visibility into third-party products as well. And out of the box, they've got all kinds of third-party integration to integrate your other security devices in your environment with XDR. So with that, I was going to see if there was any questions out there.
That was good, Rick. Very informative. I'm not sure if we have any questions. Guys,
Um,
if you can raise hand
am I,
or you can get unmuted.
am I audible?
Type in the chat. Somebody is speaking.
And please, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you,
Yeah,
Stephen.
yeah. So I'm Steven, and I want to ask, given the increasing emphasis on data privacy and protection, how does the integration of Cisco security solutions with the Mitre Att&ck Framework support businesses in safeguarding sensitive information and maintaining compliance with relevant data protection regulations?
I think you got muffled. Did you get the question, Rick? It
You
was
said integration with other non-Cisco and maintaining compliance. Was that the question?
Yeah. So I'm emphasizing on the increasing in data privacy and protection. I wanted to know how the integration of Cisco security solutions with the Mitre Att&ck Framework supports businesses in safeguarding sensitive information and maintaining compliance with relevant data protection regulations.
Okay, so as far as the XDR really doesn't, it's not a SIM solution, so it doesn't really store a lot of information in the cloud. So it's a cloud-based solution. So the way it would integrate with other third-party is API. So the third-party APIs are published from somebody like, I always love to use Palo as an example because they're a huge firewall provider. They would publish their APIs for integration to their products and their firewalls. Cisco only takes advantage of APIs, and then of course you're going to have to generate some kind of keys to give you access into that environment to actually pull information from that environment to add to the enrichment inside XDR and SecureX. But the actual compliance itself, it's an extended detection and response system that doesn't really store huge amounts of data. It's not a repository like a SIM solution. It's something that it gets an alert in, it's going to actually apply its intelligence, it's going to do its thing, and then it's going to report back to the security operations team. I don't know whether there's a lot of, are you talking about compliance with the data that it's ingesting?
Please, I didn't hear your feedback. Please, can you repeat what you just asked? I didn't quite hear you.
Rick, can you repeat your question again? For Stephen? Rick, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think he's asking to repeat your question again. So
Oh, repeat my question again. So are you asking what we're doing as far as compliance with the data that we're ingesting, the data XDR is getting?
Yes. So considering the data from from businesses, like our data that will be integrating, like you see, it will be, the system will be taking data from the business. So I'm wondering how it's able to protect those data that are available, those data that the system is going to use from businesses.
Right. Well, I know that when they take data in, they're putting it, they're normalizing the format and they're encrypting it. So the data is encrypted at rest when they put it into the cloud. I would actually have to get an answer on exactly how they're doing it, but I know the data at rest is encrypted when they're ingesting that into the cloud and putting it into their database.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No, I think I'm fine.
Awesome. Well, I would recommend you guys, if you're out there and you're Cisco users or, partners or anything else on this call, where I got the actual demo is dcloud.cisco.com. If you've got a Cisco login, you can log in and you can search for XDR or SecureX, and you can actually create your own little sandbox where you can, play with this. You can see how it works. There's a little script that goes with it that you can follow the script, but all of the products are out there as well. If you search for any of the products out in Cisco, if you're interested in a Cisco product, they're out there on dcloud, just so you can actually play with them in a controlled sandbox. That's where I get my demos from. I always know they're just reliable, and they have instant-ons, and they actually have demos that you can schedule. The scheduled demos are really cool because you can actually modify them. They're writable, so you can do all kinds of things. You can create your own environment if you want.
Yeah, they have good labs. We can also provide trials to the customers from there if needed.
Mm-hmm.
So like demo environment to the customers as well. So we can. All right, that's good. Additional questions? I know we are reaching the top of the hour. So,
Mm-hmm.
do we have any questions? Okay.
Well, cool. If anybody needs to get a hold of me, if you want any follow-on, inside the presentation is my email address. Although I told these guys too that I'll only be there for another week or so because I'm kind of retiring. You guys get one of my last presentations.
Last presentations, absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, guys, feel free to reach out to the email addresses listed out here. You can reach out to me. I can help you with any questions across the board with any Cisco technology implementation and building the solution. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for your time, everybody.
Right. Thanks, everyone.